The meaning of life. So, on average, we're born, we're going to live about 70, 80 years, and then we're going to die. The first 30 years or so, we're going to be having growth, and then it's going to be 10 years about the same until we enter a stage of decline that's going to end with our personal extinction and death. Nothing survives in any real sense other than memories that people have of us, but eventually those memories will leave too. I mean, if there's statues to you like Hitler, you'll be remembered, but generally speaking, we will be forgotten. Where am I going? What am I doing? What is the meaning of life? There's no known purpose or value to our existence. We really don't know. We are just one of millions of different species on Earth. We are just dust in the winds. We're born, we live, we die. That's the end. That's life. Well, how does this idea make you feel? It's a slightly depressing way of looking at life. Birth, in between stuff, and death. Does it really explain life to you, as we've discussed it so far? Don't people want there to be more to life than what we might be able to see? Most people do want there to be more. What do we want more of? We want a purpose. We want a meaning. We want to have some goal to go for. We need to understand maybe that there's something more than our bodies. For those of us who are afraid of our death and extinction, we'll believe in an afterlife perhaps. We want a further life after this one in many cases. A lot of people want some justice. In other words, somebody who's been corrupt or a bad person, we want them to get what they deserve. We want everything to be fair. Some people, as I say, they look for a greater power in the form of religion. So here are different philosophical meanings of life. We'll go through them this year, each, but just to sort of introduce you to the concepts. The first concept is eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is coming from Aristotle and the ancient Greeks. It was mentioned by other philosophers around that time. It said eudaimonia, the role, the point of life is to use our reason, to use our thoughts, so that we can find out and achieve what is the good life. Now, the good life might differ from person to person, but in general, the good life meant to try through our actions to be as excellent as we can, to be as a person as virtuous as we can. Honest, courageous, generous, all of these positive traits. The ancient Greeks believed the meaning of life was to develop ourselves, develop these virtues, and lead this eudaimonia, this good life. Eastern philosophy, this is China, India, the Far East. They have different ideas of the meaning of life. Taoism says that life is Tao. Tao is nature. Tao is kind of like the concept of the force. And we need to learn how nature works. In other words, water can carve out the Grand Canyon. Water can change forms. Water can fill the cup. We need to learn to be more like water. We need to adapt to nature. They thought that was the meaning of life. Then you have Buddhists. Now, Buddhists said the meaning of life was to obtain this enlightenment, this understanding. If you've heard of the band Nirvana, they wanted to obtain nirvana, which was to escape from the cycle of lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And they said you could do that by understanding where suffering comes from. If you really think about it, anything you'll ever suffer from comes from a desire you have. In fact, right now, think of one thing that you've suffered from in your life. They all come from desire. Maybe desire to not feel that pain or desire to have world go the way we wish it were. But ultimately, Buddhism says we need to achieve this enlightenment by separating ourselves from the ignorance, which is desire. Zen Buddhism, general concept, is that to live in the moment, to live in the present, that the moment right now is the only moment that ever is. And then Hinduism. Hinduism is very much misunderstood, as is the concept of karma. Karma is something we accumulate, either good or bad, and we carry it from lifetime to lifetime, they claim. Our job on earth is to work off our karma. In other words, if you do something good and you're the one who did good, you feel proud of yourself, you're doing it from an egotistical way. In Hinduism, they believe when you start acting selflessly, in other words, you don't worry about the I, me, mine, the ego, you can go beyond that and you can realize that we're all connected on some level. It's the deepest of the philosophies, but sometimes it's the one the kids get the most out of. A concept that was brought to me, a quote by one of my favorite students: "You are not a person experiencing the universe, you are the universe experiencing a person." Quite deep from Alan Watts. The idea of the force, that we're all interconnected. The illusion, they say, Hinduism, is that you are individual self, but rather you are life, you are the universe. The true meaning of life: eat, avoid bad people, jump to the next level. This is Pac-Man. I spent many a quarter back in the day at an arcade. Jump to the next level. What do they mean? Well, some people have the belief in something happens after our lives. Otherworldly religions. Some people believe, if you're a religious person, that the meaning of life is to serve God's commandments and purposes. Now, depending on different religions, if you really look at what Muhammad said versus what Jesus said versus what Lao Tzu said, they all say the same general concepts, believe it or not. But they believe that if you do right things on earth and you obey these rules, you will be rewarded with an afterlife, heaven in the case of Christians, which is better than life here. That's the belief. And so the implication is the eternal life is the one that's most meaningful, that this life is somehow a stepping stone. Some people are willing to put up with the caste system in India. They believe if you're the lowest of the low, you need to fulfill that responsibility in this life, and the next life you'll be rewarded. And finally, existentialism. In terms of the four philosophies that deal with the meaning of life, existentialism says there is no meaning of life other than what you figure it out to be. It's your job to make the choices. It's your responsibilities to ultimately figure out what's meaningful to you. And there's a lot of different things, but they believed, and some people take this negatively, like, oh, there's no meaning to life. Sartre said, purpose and meaning are not built into human life. We ourselves are responsible for fashioning our own purposes. It is not that life has no meaning, that it has no predetermined meaning. Meaning, you might decide to do something that is unexpected. You might not decide that having a family or going to college or going to the business or going into the military is for you. Existentialism says we have the responsibility and the anxiety of having freedom of choice, and we should use it. Viktor Frankl, a Jewish man who suffered at the concentration camps, the meaning of life is to give life meaning. That's generally speaking the view of existentialism, that it's our responsibility. So, practical theories for the meaning of life. There's a whole bunch of them that you might have. I think many of us will have more than one of these, but we're going to go through each of these in order and discuss what some individuals use to get up in the morning. What motivates them? You mean drinking beer and watching sports aren't the meaning of life? Well, most people, to be honest, the meaning of life is TGIF. We got through the work week, now we can relax and do something to make us forget the world. That's some people's meaning of life, but we're trying to get a little bit deeper than that, for those who truly try to examine their life as Socrates called for. Helping others. Is it better to give than receive? I think as people get older, a lot of times they actually prefer to give. I like to see the reactions of my loved ones when they get something that I might give them. But it's interesting, we a lot of times fall into the role of not realizing that our giving is actually sometimes a selfish mode. In other words, I've asked the class, if you give a gift to a loved one, but they can never know it was from you, that the gift is anonymous, would the gift feel as sweet? If you can answer honestly, then you're giving the gift for the right reason. But if you honestly think about it and realize, no, I want them to know it's from me, then there's a little bit of the egotistical wanting them to like you more because you gave them a gift. But that's fine. We'll come back to that. Help others is a positive thing. We, generally speaking, are going to look at our families in terms of a circle, in terms of we want to honor our family. We want to help our family. Parents work jobs they don't like to pay, mortgages to send the kids to soccer camps. And we respect our family name by trying to make our lives meaningful. But the interesting concept The concept of family doesn't have to just be your brother, sister, and aunts and uncles. It can be extended to larger, maybe the whole community, maybe the town, maybe mankind. Different people have different understandings of what, quote unquote, family is. Jackie Robinson's tombstone. A life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. And Shantiva, the Indian sage, all the suffering in the world arises from wanting happiness for the self. All the happiness in the world comes from wanting happiness for others. It's an odd thing. Most people, we search for happiness and we think it's somehow outside of us, but ultimately it comes from within, and a lot of times through giving to others, we can receive that happiness. The next theory, number 2, serving humanity. Now, very similar. Our lives themselves, they're only going to last, 60, 70, 80 years, and then they're going to be over. But during the time we are here, can we have value? Can we contribute to humanity? In other words, after we're gone, there is impact that we've provided. Maybe through medicine, invention, science. Ultimately, making art, literature, music, things that will be looked at in future generations. In other words, you are serving not just your family, but you are serving mankind, trying to leave the place a better place than when you found it. One of my favorite quotes, "A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in." In other words, there's no selfish motivation for them to plant that tree, but they know that somebody in the future will benefit from it. It's the concept of pay it forward, which some people are able to use to bring a little more meaning to their life. Number 3, being happy. That's what everybody wants, right? Is there anything that people want more than happiness? Every once in a while I'll get a kid who says money, and I'll say, what are you going to use the money for? And then they realize it's happiness that they ultimately want. Later in the year we'll examine maybe there's things better than happiness, like being content. What brings us happiness? Different people will have different answers. Usually it's achievements or having life cooperate with us. Are there any other goals more important than achieving happiness? That's a question that individuals have to answer for themselves, but this final concept is personal happiness that may lead to another's unhappiness as sweet. And I ask this to athletes. I say, in that final state game or the league game, when you beat the rival, and as you're leaving the field and you're excited with your friends because you won the game, you look down at the other bench and there's guys or girls, depending on the team, on the other team, who are crying, who are upset that they've lost. Maybe it's the final game of their career. Here's the question. Do you feel a little bit better or worse seeing somebody else unhappy as a result of your activities that brought you happiness? Sort of a deep concept. A lot of times kids actually get happiness seeing somebody else unhappy in a competitive situation. John Lennon of the Beatles. When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. If you really think about it, most of the time we're always chasing around. We're so focused on the goal that we're missing the path that we're taking. We're missing the journey, and it's the journey where we can have the happiness. If we're waiting to have happiness only when we get to the goal, oftentimes we will never reach that happiness that we wish. This is one that a lot of kids have in their mind in our society, becoming successful. What does being successful mean? Accomplishments and awards, winning things. Even in a world now where everybody gets a trophy and everybody gets a hug, maybe it's valued less, but at one point, being the best, achieving your goals, having a goal that you set and then achieve it. Maybe that's ultimately making you happy, or maybe you're proving somebody wrong. Maybe making lots of money is going to be your idea of success, or being the best in a competitive situation to feel as though you are number one. To be looked up to be respected. These things are all important to us, but the question is why? As we get further into the class, a lot of these are directly tied to how we feel about ourselves, specifically how our ego needs a boost. If we're the quote-unquote best, or we can prove somebody wrong, we feel better about ourselves. Maybe that's a goal that we shouldn't have to have. Maybe we should feel good about ourselves irregardless. Why do we feel that these things are so important? Are these things that just give us the pat on the head to let us know that we're okay? A lot of times people don't receive awards, so now we give them awards to make them feel better. Does that work? Now, Michael Jordan, who one of the most successful athletes and businessmen in American history, to be successful, you have to be selfish, or else you never achieve. And once you get to the highest level, then you have to be unselfish. Stay reachable, stay in touch, don't isolate. This is always a good quote for discussion. The idea to be selfish, to be successful, you have to be selfish, to look out after number one. There's obviously a lot of truth to that. My phone is ringing. Carpe Diem. Carpe Diem means to seize the day. If anybody's seen the great film Dead Poet Society, to seize the day. Enjoy each day as if it were your last. When you really think about it, life is short. I still sometimes think I'm a teenager. And really all life is a series of events, a series of moments. If we find any value in our life, it's because we had a series of moments that meant something to us. It happens slowly over a long period of time, and then we look back. The only way to truly find meaning in life is to be in the moment and realize, rather than the make-believe world that's in our head made of thoughts, we could focus on the real movie that's unfolding 24/7, always brand new. If we stay in the present, if we try to make today the day, then Carpe Diem, we've seized the day. The best way to find value is to be the best person we can at every moment of our lives, to be in the moment. Alan Watts. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It's so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. We are a motivated, achievement-oriented society, and there's nothing wrong with that. It does, however, bring lots of anxiety. We all feel an unease that we're somehow not enough, and this unease motivates us to act, to become something better, hopefully. Suzuki Roshi, the Zen master, said, "You are perfect as you are, and you can use some improvement." The meaning of life for many is that they have to become something. Alan Watts says, no, right now, just living in this moment is enough. Number 6, personal growth. Now, ultimately, we're going to face a lot of obstacles and hardships. Some people are going to go to the fetal position and kick and scream and cry that life didn't cooperate with our special wishes. Others are going to realize that that obstacle that's put before us, we have to go over that obstacle. That obstacle is going to make us a better person. Our experiences, our hardships are going to make us a more well-rounded person. Now, sandpaper, a quote I kind of made up, life is the sandpaper of our existence. Sandpaper, if you were to rub it on wood, or it's going to rub off the rough edges. If you put it on your skin, it's going to take off your skin. The hardest times we face in our life, that everybody will face, the death, the disappointment, the betrayals, these things, while they crush us, they also use the sandpaper of life to make us into something. This point of view says that really what life is, it's practice. It's a training camp to acquire all of the characteristics we need to be a more well-rounded person. In other words, maybe you are quote-unquote lucky. If you're quote-unquote lucky in my bad example, you are somebody who has gone through something. You've gone through some large life event that maybe crushed you in the moment, but you've persevered and you've gotten past that. Now problems that come into your future, you know you can handle them. What hasn't killed you has made you stronger, as Nietzsche said. A lot of kids don't like the idea of saying that the unfortunate one are the lucky ones. Well, the others who haven't suffered these problems, they have them in their horizons. We all will have this issue. Personal growth is looking at the problems that we face and the situations we face as a way to improve. A curriculum to life, a curriculum of life, to make us into a better person. Life is not about waiting for the storms to pass, it's about learning to dance in the rain. I say a quote a lot, I say, you cannot control the waves, but you can learn to surf. The waves represent the same thing the storms represent, which are the trials and tribulations, the obstacles that we're going to face in life. We need to find a way through. We need to build a boat because the storm is coming. There's always a storm coming. Number 7, love. Now, some kids find this cheesy and some kids find this deep. But when you really think about it, through loving animals or people, that's where we find all of our meaning. If you think about it, almost every positive experience you've ever had has been connected through with somebody else or with an animal or making somebody else proud. And in the end, the love you get is equal to the love you give. I kind of biffed that quote from the Beatles. Love need not be limited to our family and friends, but if we can widen the circle of life, we can have a more rewarding life. Now, what does that mean? I truly try to help everybody I interact with. My circle of love is quite wide. Most people, it's very specific. It's their family members or anybody who has not wronged them. It changes life by how you look at it. If you look at life with gratitude, it's not possible to be full of judgment. Where there is love, there is life. Mahatma Gandhi. A theory has been brought forth, which I found pretty accurate. On your deathbed, right before you have your final breath, when you're hopefully surrounded by loved ones, what will be the thing that you're most wishing for? What will your final wish be? Because whatever that wish was, maybe I spent more time with my family, maybe I wish I did something else in my life. Whatever that wish is, that's what your meaning of life really is. What will your last wish be? Please write journals. I will see you all later.